Hey, what's up guys? We've heard of dual cameras on smartphones before, but LG's new flagship may be the first to call its setup a penta-camera. Well, that's 3 on the back and 2 on the front. So does more mean better? And what else does it bring to the table? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and this is our LG V40 ThinQ review. If you know LG phones, the V40 ThinQ's glass back design will look pretty familiar. The edges of the glass are curved, tapering slightly into the rounded aluminum frame. The phone doesn't feel small in the hand, but as previous LG phones, it's actually pretty light, at 169 grams. Whether or not you like this is personal preference. The back is rather shiny, but not too over the top in our Aurora Black and Carmine Red models. There are some metallic-looking highlights when they catch the light. Also on the back is the V40's triple camera setup, arranged in a horizontal bar. The flash is actually floating outside of the arrangement, but it doesn't look too bad. The horizontal setup is actually quite stable, and this phone won't rock on the table or desk. There's also the rear-mounted fingerprint reader, which is accurate and reliable to wake up the phone, but it's no longer a power button. This power button has been moved from the back to the side this time around. I'm not a big fan. It's hard to reach with your thumb and has a bit of a mushy feel. Flipping over to the front, we have a tall 6.4-inch OLED display with a QHD resolution, actually the largest so far on a V-series phone. And yes, this one does have a notch cutout. The notch holds a front-facing dual-camera setup, as well as an earpiece that is a bit off-center. LG insists on calling the notch a second screen, and you can opt to either hide it completely with a black bar, or even tweak its color or shape. This screen is sharp at 537 ppi and content looks great. There's HDR10 video support too. One thing we noted was that though you get those deep blacks of an AMOLED, they're not quite as deep as on one of Samsung's AMOLED panels, but you can't really notice it with the naked eye. Brightness can be quite good, up to 638 nits in auto mode when in bright conditions. But with auto mode off, it only goes up to about half that. Sunlight legibility is good though. However, color accuracy of this panel is quite unimpressive, regardless of the many sliders and options available. There is an always-on display, which will give you the time and let you know when you need to check your phone. However, we didn't see an option to use the notification LED instead. For audio, the V40 has an interesting setup, called a boombox. The sound not only comes out of the speaker, but it's also as if it's coming through the back panel too. Overall, the V40 earned a very good score in our loudness tests. There's also a good old 3.5mm headphone jack at the bottom, and audio is powered by a 32-bit quad DAC. It sounds awesome. Everything is loud and clear, and there's an FM radio too. The phone comes with either 64 or 128 gigs of internal storage, and it is expandable through microSD. If you get the dual SIM version, you can put your second SIM into the SD card tray. One interesting specification the V40 has is a military standard compliance for resistance to drops, though we didn't exactly test this out ourselves. And there's IP68 water and dust resistance, so you don't have to worry about getting this phone wet either. The LG V40 ThinQ runs Android 8.1 Oreo with LG's own UI on top. It is expected to update to Android Pie in the near future. The user interface is basically identical to the LG G7's, with its colorful icons and white menus. Swiping to the left opens up a customizable newsfeed called Discover, as well as an organized space for the Google Assistant. You can also get to this space through a dedicated hardware button on the side, sort of like the one you see on Samsung's flagships. You can also double press the button to open Google Lens. The button doesn't seem to be customizable though. When you're in a game, a button for game tools appears on the navigation bar. From here, you can disable notifications, hide the navigation bar, and go full screen. And you also have the option for face unlock if you don't want to use the fingerprint reader to unlock the phone. It works really well. The V40 ThinQ is powered by Qualcomm's high-end Snapdragon 845 chipset, along with 6 gigs of RAM. There were hardly any surprises with the benchmark scores. We expected great performance from the LG flagship, and we got it. Just keep in mind that if you're after the latest and greatest, the next generation of chipsets will be coming out in just a few months. The V40 ThinQ comes with a 3300 mAh battery and we were surprised by its performance, but not exactly in a good way. It got an endurance rating of only 64 hours in our proprietary tests. Really, one of the lowest scores we've seen this year. With the bundled quick charger, we were able to get from 0 to 40% in half an hour. Not too bad, but nothing mind-blowing. There is wireless charging too, as fast as it gets at 15 watts. Let's move on to the V40's cameras. There are 3 proper ones on the back. The leftmost is a stabilized 12 megapixel f2.4 telephoto cam which offers 2 times optical zoom. The next is a 16 megapixel ultra wide angle cam with an f1.9 lens, which doesn't have autofocus. And the third is a 12 megapixel f1.5 primary cam, which comes with all the bells and whistles, like phase detection autofocus and optical stabilization. One neat feature called Triple Preview makes it easier to handle so many cameras on the fly. Long pressing on one of the tree icons creates 3 live viewfinder thumbnails, one for each camera. That way you can see which view looks the best, without having to rotate through them all. Triple Shot takes this further by grabbing a shot from all 3 cameras and making a sort of zoom-in transition video. You get to keep all of the stills as well. Let's talk about the image quality. In daylight, the primary cam takes pleasing shots, with great colors and contrast. We weren't too excited about the dynamic range, however, especially in shadows, which often end up with some clipped blacks. And though detail is good, it isn't stunning. Shooting with the ultra-wide cam, we were impressed by its low level of barrel distortion compared to the competitors, and the level of detail is more than good enough. And now let's zoom in with a telephoto for the first time on an LG phone. Quality is actually really good, sharp and detailed, even on par with competitors like Apple and Samsung. There's an AI camera mode here too, like what you see pretty much everywhere these days. It provides higher color saturation, but there's a noticeable drop in sharpness. In portrait mode, instead of taking shots with a telephoto cam, the V40 actually uses its primary one. This means that you have to stand uncomfortably close to your subject for decent framing. But it also means that portraits are higher quality, especially in lower light. Separation is excellent, and blur is quite convincing. Moving on to low light, the V40 actually does a great job. It captures sharp and detailed night shots without much desaturation. Colors aren't exactly true to life in highlights, where the HDR algorithms struggle a bit with the recovery, but the overall photos look nice. The ultra-wide cam works reasonably well in low light too, if you can look past the noise. If you try to zoom at night, you won't be able to use the telephoto cam. The phone just crops an image from the main camera. LG even has a night mode, called Super Bright Camera. You can't use it wherever you want though, only when it detects very low light conditions. It does help to brighten up the darkest of shadows, but it's nowhere near the wow effect you get from Huawei's or Google's night modes. The V40 ThinQ has a dual camera setup on the front for selfies. The main cam is 8 megapixels with an f1.9 lens, plus there's a 5 megapixel f2.2 wide-angle cam, which has a 90-degree field of view for those group shots. Both have fixed focus. Selfies have never been one of LG's strengths, and sadly this is still true on the V40. Photos from either camera turn out pretty noisy and grainy. Colors are nice though. We do appreciate the increased coverage from the wide-angle cam too. There's also a selfie portrait option. One thing LG is great at is video recording. You can record in 4K or 1080p at 60, 30, or 24 frames per second. Manual mode also lets you tweak white balance and exposure, and change the bitrate. You also have advanced audio recording options: gain, low-cut filter, limiter, and wind noise filter. 4K footage from the main cam is superb, with a lot of fine detail and low noise. There's great contrast and color rendition is spot on. It's interesting. In 4K, 60fps clips appear crisper than the 30fps ones. You can also shoot through the ultra-wide camera, which looks equally as great. Zoomed videos through the telephoto lens look good too, though 4K at 60fps isn't available here. And electronic video stabilization is available for all 3 cameras, and in all modes except for 4K at 60fps. It's excellent. Everything is quite smooth. So that's the LG V40 ThinQ. As a flagship phone, it offers quite a lot. A light yet durable build, awesome audio playback, a versatile triple camera, and class-leading video recording. However, it does have its flaws, and the biggest is the battery life. The V40 is posting numbers that just don't hit the mark as the 2018 flagship. Maybe back in 2015 or 2016, but this is supposed to be a cutting-edge device. And on top of that, LG is marketing this as their first penta camera, but 2 of those cameras are on the front for selfies, and honestly, they're nothing special. Definitely not spicy enough to attract selfie enthusiasts like me. So as it stands, it's tough to recommend the V40 ThinQ at its $950 launch price. If that goes down, it could be worth looking into, especially if you really love listening to music on the go or want to take some great videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and you're always welcome to stop by our site, gsmmarina.com, for the latest news, reviews, and test findings. See ya!